I'll be the first to admit that starting creative projects is hard, and without the right systems and workflows, they almost feel impossible to finish. Now, I know we all have those half-complete projects we told ourselves would be wrapped up months ago, so today, I wanted to make everything feel a little less daunting and share with you my entire creative workflow that I've put together over the last few years. I'll be visualizing everything for you guys in my productivity app of choice, Craft, an app I recently started using as a newly become full-time creator looking to stay on top of all my creative projects as well as just day-to-day life. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and let's get right into it. Alright, so to start out, I want to give you guys a brief overview of all the different moving parts here, just so it's a little bit easier for you to follow along through this entire process. So I pretty much dumbed down my workflow to 6 key parts, which boils down to the idea phase, the pre-production, gear, filming, editing, and then finally all of the YouTube stuff like uploading it, the thumbnail, the optimization, things like that. But in general, this is the typical workflow that you'll see me use for 99% of my video projects. So getting into it here, how I start with finding ideas. So recently what I've been experimenting with, and I suggest you guys do the same, is consuming less content. And I know that a lot of us these days will sit down and, doom scroll for hours on end under the impression that we're, finding inspiration or finding ideas, and I'm guilty of that too. But the truth is, I actually found that I make better work and more original work when I just sit down and let myself find inspiration from real life. So what that means is putting Instagram down, getting off YouTube, and just really thinking about what I want to make. What do I interact with on a day-to-day basis that sparks inspiration inside of me? And because these ideas can really hit you at any moment, at the randomest times, I've actually mapped this button, this action button on my phone, to my note-taking app. So when I click and hold this button, it instantly allows me to write down any fresh ideas that come to mind. Because genuinely, some of my best ideas have come when I'm at the gym or walking around. The important thing for me is just getting that idea in here and coming back to it in the future. Once I'm able to sit down and start combing through the list of ideas I've generated over the last week, I'll probably pull a few out that I actually want to pursue further and sit down just to script out and kind of think about what that video actually would look like. Now, to different people, pre-production looks different. Some people will script things out word for word. Some people will also take it in a more direct sense, in a more where am I shooting, time of day type of deal. For me, I do a bit of both, and I'll show you what I mean. So typically, I don't script things out line for line, but I'll do it by scenes. I always talk about thinking about your videos in vlogs in scenes, how your scene flows from one to another. So typically I'll just make a little drop down box here, and instead of putting in what I'm gonna say in each scene and specific shots, I'll just kind of talk about what I want that scene to represent. So what is the focus of each scene? So taking a look at a previous video of mine where I talked about this camera, actually my camera gear, I wanted the introduction to first be a recap of all the cool shots that I got with this camera, as well as how I got this camera. When did I pick it up? Why did I pick it up? Maybe additional questions I want to answer, like when did I purchase this camera? Why did I purchase this camera? Any sort of additional bits of information that I think are necessary to the story will go in that little additional info tab. So you see, when I do this, I'm not actually saying exactly what I'm saying. There's no quotation mark direct quotes. It's more so things that I need to think about. When I sit down, get my shot, and I hit record, I'll glance at this and see, oh yeah, I wanted to talk about why I purchased the camera. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I do not script my videos. The most I do is right here, I'll just add little bullet points or add little notes of what I want to reference. Maybe there's a song that I have in mind that I would love to put to a certain scene. I'll add that here. If necessary, this is where I'll also throw in a production brief. If there's a sponsor, typically they have some sort of messaging that they want you to incorporate. I'll typically just add a link for it in another box so I can reference it whenever necessary. And the rare occasion that I actually need to schedule a date with a shoot or something, I'll of course just throw that in here so that if it actually comes down to it, I have all the information for that video right there in this one page. Okay, sweet. So the next section is gear, and this is probably what everybody actually loves to talk about, but personally, over these last few months, I found that I don't actually care as much as I used to about gear. Maybe that's because I'm hitting the point where I think gear doesn't matter, or it's because I just can't afford any more expensive camera gear, so I'm kind of stuck with what I have. Whatever the reason is, after I plan the video, and typically right before I go out shooting, I have to think about gear. What camera gear am I bringing, and what kind of shots do I want to get? So real quick, I'll show you the kind of gear that I actually take with me. So let's drop in some photos here of my gear. This is pretty much all of the gear that I use on a regular basis. So starting off first here, we have my Sony 11mm f1.8. This is my standard vlogging lens. You guys have heard me rave about it all the time, but it's just such a compact lens that makes it really perfect for vlogging, because when I have my arm stretched out like this, I don't want a big weight over here. So this just works out perfectly. Plus f1.8, great for low light. Next, actually a recent pickup, but I'm actually using it right now, is the DJI mic 2s. It allows me to change up the way I film, so instead of having a shotgun mic and having to sit this close to the camera just to get good audio, I can kind of walk around. And also because there's 2 transmitters, it allows me to do interviews, which has been really fun. Next is my zoom lens, which is also what I would call my cinematic lens. This is the Tamron 17-70 f2.8. It's just your classic zoom lens. Basically, everyone should have one of these in your kit. Next is my shotgun microphone, which is the Rode Video Micro. Now, I absolutely love this thing. It's not actually the size. The photo is way bigger than it should be. It is like a budget shotgun microphone. I think I purchased it in 2018, so you do the math how many years ago that was, and it's lasted me ever since. It sits on top of my camera, and to this day, I still get questions about my audio because apparently it's just that good. And finally is my camera, the Sony a6700. Now, I've been shooting on this since 2023, so I've really gotten familiar with it, and you're seeing the image right now. And like we kind of went through in the second part, pre-production, I actually made a full video talking about pros and cons of this camera, so if it's something you're interested in, go check it out after. But that right there is pretty much it. Typically, all 5 of these pieces of gear will be found in my backpack, and the good news is, because of size, all of this gear actually fits in a 6-liter sling bag. I know, kind of crazy, but that's just the benefit of shooting on a smaller camera. Again, this diagram is not true to size at all, but that is typically the gear I'll find in my backpack at all times. Next, once all the at-home planning work is done, we actually get to the fun part, filming. So let's step outside for this. Alright, so typically by the time I actually start shooting and I get outside, because honestly I just like editing videos and color grading with natural light, so I typically shoot outdoors. By the time I get there, I already have a very solid idea of what I'm shooting based on what I've done in the pre-production phase, so there's not much more to it than just getting outside and actually getting it done. So I just pull up the pre-production plan that we wrote earlier, and I basically just go scene by scene and do what I need to do. A lot of the times my videos are based on vlogs, so the scenes aren't as concrete as they are in this video. And one thing with YouTube is that you have to be flexible, so when I'm out actually shooting, I'm also thinking in the back of my head, what else do I need to showcase to make this video make sense? What else should I put in? What are some shots or things I should talk about? And if something comes up, I'll just grab my phone again, add it to that video outline that we did earlier, and it's kind of just like a cycle. I film, think about what else I need to film, and as you do that over and over again, the entire process gets a lot easier. So after you finish shooting your video, it's time to actually sit down and edit, and this is definitely the longest part of the process. People will always ask how long it takes to edit one of my vlogs, and the truth is that it really depends on the type of video I'm making and how much footage I begin with. Typically after filming, I have anywhere between 1 and 3 hours of raw footage. So from that, I always tell people it takes about 1 hour to edit 1 minute of final video. So if I'm trying to make a 10-minute video, expect about 10 hours of editing. And for the videos that I typically make on the channel, I'm around that 10 to 20 minute mark, so 10 to 20 hours, give or take a few. So the first thing is just the rough edit, which is just me taking out all the stutters and boring parts of the video that don't actually add to the story I'm trying to make. Once that's all in, I start playing with like music, effects to pace the video and transition from scene to scene and create a good feeling when you're watching the video. So here in my craft document, once again, I have a whiteboard, and I actually love this whiteboard feature because it allows me to annotate my documents. Coming out of school, I have this huge iPad plus this pen, which I used on the regular, and I've been looking for ways to incorporate it back into my actual workflow. So just pulling up a screenshot of my timeline here, I'll annotate it and kind of explain to you what's going on in my head as I'm putting it together. First of all, this video was a 1-day vlog, and in the end, you can see that I was kind of around that 12-minute mark. And you can kind of see that already there are different scenes being placed on the timeline here. For example, it's pretty easy to see that this right here is its own scene. This was the intro. Next, I have the first talking segment right here where I explain what's going on in this vlog. So the intro right here is like 10 seconds long, followed by a solid almost 2 minutes of just talking. And 2 minutes is definitely on the longer side, but I think if you sandwich it in between different B-roll segments like here, 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 I think it's totally okay because it still kind of flows in the video. I always try and put B-roll, talking segment, B-roll, talking segment, just so it kind of keeps everything engaging. And you can see that I basically did that over and over again here. So after the first talking segment, I jump into the second B-roll segment. And you can see that this formula is really just rinse and repeat. Again here, I have another B-roll segment, followed by more talking right here, followed by more B-roll, talking, B-roll, and then talking, and then a little bit of an outro scene right here. So to keep the feeling of the film moving forward, I don't want to have any like stagnant scenes that just kind of feel like they're dragging on. So any talking scene, I try and keep it to less than 2 minutes, unless I have something really important to say and it's like educational. Like now, I'm kind of just going on and on. As you can see, I also use a lot of music in my videos, whether you realize it or not. I have 1 track, 2 tracks. I think this is all 1 track here. So 3, 4, 5, and I have an intro track. So that's 6 different tracks in a 12-minute vlog. Definitely more than I think people would expect, but I think if you are able to blend music in really well into your vlogs, it almost goes completely unnoticed, and I think that's the best. That's pretty much it for my editing process. That's what a typical vlog timeline will look like. Let me know if you have any other additional questions, and I'll be sure to answer them in the comments. So once your video is done being edited and you have it all exported, the final step for me is getting it onto YouTube. A couple things that I always think about when I'm uploading it to YouTube. Obviously, thumbnail, very important. Title, equally as important. Description, and lastly, community. And I'll go into each one of these very briefly. For thumbnails, currently I'm rotating through 4 different fonts. Pro tip, on Photoshop, if you're using white text, I use this Gaussian blur to make it look softer and more natural, and then I add a drop shadow to make it kind of pop a little more. Next is the title, and if you go on my channel, you kind of see that I have a common theme of like documenting your life, so I always try and incorporate that type of wording into my videos. And the video description, I typically keep this very similar from all my videos. I just have it as like an upload default on YouTube. And finally, community. Now, I don't even know why some people don't respond to their comments, especially if you're a small YouTuber. I know you don't get that many comments, so you should really be actively trying to respond to all of them. Like if your video gets 10 comments and then you respond to every single one of them, now your video has 20 comments, that just looks even better. So the final to do after uploading a video to YouTube is responding to comments and engaging with your community. So as best as I can summarize it without getting too technical, that right there is my creative process. Everyone's is gonna look slightly different, but it all comes together with repetition. As much as I think videos like this are helpful, it really is up to you now to build these systems for yourself. If you are interested in learning more about this workflow, feel free to check out Craft, who are offering our community a lifetime 50% off discount for the Plus tier. You can also start writing immediately with the free tier, and you can find that all at the first link in the description. Thank you guys so much for being here, and again, thank you to Craft for sponsoring this video.